Good afternoon from Helsinki. I'm in Itäkeskus. Today I'm at the library and in this lovely room that you can reserve called the Ruusu room, which Ruusu is rose. There's some rose-colored things in here. And it's very fitting because I'm going to do a flower poem by Eugenio Montale. Although it's not roses, it's sunflowers. Aurinko in Finnish, which is just boring. It just means um, sunflower, sun plus flower. Whereas the Italian word girasole is truly poetic, exciting, has movement. I was just thinking about all the ways you hear giro, gira, girare in Italian. I can't even list them all. But my favorite one is fare un giro because it's easy to translate, but it's also not. It's just like because you would only say it in certain circumstances. Like I'm someone who is always on a walk. I'm a walking philosopher, whatever you want to call it. I walk 25, 30 kilometers every day. And so I'm always fare un giro. And there was this woman that when I was staying for months in the Barolo wine region, I've walked every single one of the comuni, the villages, and my friends own a restaurant, and this woman who worked in the kitchen for them, she saw me multiple times walking and walking sometimes where you're not supposed to walk because there's no footpath, and it's not hospitable to pedestrians. Most of it is, and there's a lot of wonderful country roads once you get into the vineyards, but there are certain gaps where it's not so safe, or most people just wouldn't walk. And so it was a running joke with her, like she would say, "Oh, I saw you again today, fare un giro." But it can also mean, I don't know, to turn, to spin, to spill. I guess, yeah. There's so many different contexts. I still remember. I'll never forget when I was really getting good at the Italian language. I was walking in central Milano, and there was a group of very colorfully dressed. I don't know. They were probably all in their 20s, and they were having an animated conversation as they were walking. I walked fast. I was walking kind of behind them, but then they stopped. One of them realized that they needed to turn right, and so he's like, "Ragazzi, qui giriamo a destra." It was so dramatic. It was like a little bit over the top, but I guess they were all just very colorful, um, excited people, and and so I've never forgot that when I hear the word giro, girare, I always think of that. He was just like, "Giriamo a destra. We have to go. We have to go right here. We have to take this right." But anyway, the poem, it also links back to the Emily Dickinson poem I just did, one of my favorites, which I want to do an extended version of all the meanings that I get out of that one. The Portami un tramonto in una tazza, the bring me the sunset in a cup. But in this, the Eugenio Montale poem from his collection that came out in the years after World War One, the war to end all wars. Um, and he brings up again all these like arid, existential, dry, scorched earth, but also renewal, um, and seeing the essence of things and looking at things, and his poetry reflects that because it's chunky. There's a lot of nouns, and studying closely word by word. Like he's definitely writing these word by word. He's not writing them line by line. Um, so we're going to try this. It's just from his collection Ossi di Seppia, the cuttlefish bones, which you would see like his family had a place. I believe it was in one of the Cinque Terre or adjacent villages on the Ligurian coast, and he saw cuttlefish bones, which of course had a long history, where you get the tone seppia, so ossi di seppia. But he says, "Portami a girasole, che io lo trapianti, nel mio terreno bruciato dal salino, e mostri tutto il giorno agli azzurri specchianti del cielo l'ansietà del suo volto giallino. Tendono alla chiarità le cose oscure e esauriscono i corpi in un fluire di tinte, queste in musiche. Svanire e dunque l'avventura delle venture. Portami tu la pianta che conduce dove sorgono bionde trasparenze e vapora la vita quale essenza. Portami il girasole impazzito di luce." So what I've really gotten into with the Montale poems, now that I'm reading them in Italian, I apologize for my pronunciation. I know it's not excellent, but there's such a difference when you go word by word, and various translators, especially Jonathan Galassi, who had a deep passion for this poetry, he brings out some of it, but there are a lot of things that when it's so chunky, and as Montale said, it's like he liked it in some of his poems. It's like the knots on a stick or a branch. I guess that's more poetic than stick. But so what he's saying, bring me the sunflower, portami il girasole, bring me the sunflower, let me plant it in my field, perched by the salt sea wind, and let it show the blue reflecting sky, the yearning of its yellow face all day. Dark things tend to be brightness. Bodies fade out in a flood of colors and music. So disappearing is the destiny of destinies. Bring me the plant that leads the way to where the blonde transparencies rise, and life as essence turns to haze. Bring me the sunflower crazed with light, impazzito di luce. It's so interesting, and it's always, it's all of his poems, even the bad ones or even the mediocre ones, are worth reading a second time. And some poets, like Robert Bly was famous for this, is that the first time you just have to let it float like just above your head or something, and you're taking in the word slowly, and you're making a little connection. It triggers a feeling, an emotion, a memory, connection with the past, whatever you believe, whether we're in labyrinths or whatever. But and then the second time, it's like you're starting to see how those parts come together, the words, the sounds, why the poet chose those words, what the rhythm is, what the structure is. Instead of just like viewing it like most people in Western society as just like, what's the meaning? What does this mean? And then like diagramming and doing all kinds of crazy analytical nonsense. And so if you look at it again, bring me the sunflower, let me plant it in my field, perched by the salt sea wind, nel mio terreno bruciato dal salino, and let it show the blue reflecting sky, agli azzurri specchianti, the yearning of its yellow face all day. Ansietta. Dark things tend to brightness. bodies fade out in a flood of colors and music. So disappearing is the destiny of destinies. Bring me the plant that leads the way to where the blonde transparencies rise, and life as essence turns to haze. Bring me the sunflower crazed with light. And so it's like that one ties nicely with, you know, bring me the sunset in a cup. And it ties nicely. I did another Montale poem. I'm probably going to do a lot of these from the same Ossi di Seppia. His terrifying one where he talks about forse un mattino, one morning, he's out on his walk and he turns around and he sees the veil and he experiences the nothingness and he walks back among the crowd knowing that he's seen something. His life is changed forever, but it's just like it's his secret, or the speaker's secret, whatever. But this is kind of similar, I think. It's just like it's this seeking the kind of the clarity. I'm not going to use the word evanescence. There was a time when that word was popular, but it's like, these kind of like shimmering images, the flood of colors and music. So disappearing is the destiny of destinies. The reason I chose this poem is because this library book had a lovely little lavender post-it note on the page of this poem, and the person had written that last line of the second stanza: svanire è dunque l'avventura delle venture. Disappearing is the destiny of destinies, and they put a little heart by it. So it's like that's the thing why sometimes taking library books will connect you with all these other readers and seekers and thinkers and doers, because I don't know what the context was of why it's the only post-it note that I see in this book, but it's it is a very, very beautiful, deep, penetrating phrase, and the English doesn't do it justice, because it says, so disappearing is the destiny of destinies. It just kind of sounds like, yeah, it's getting the point across, but I think it makes it a little less interesting, a little more kitschy. Just could be like a pop song lyric or something, whereas I think you get more marrow from the Italian. Svanire è dunque l'avventura delle venture. Svanire is an interesting word because I think it's kind of more of an archaic word, but it comes from the Latin of like, kind of like what the emptiness, but it is like this void. Yeah, yeah. It's more like, yeah, the void, vuoto. So svanire e dunque, it's like you don't have that in the English. Dunque is also an interesting word because I think mostly in colloquial speech you hear quindi more, but both words make you stop, and it's like it gives structure to your thoughts, and it kind of like connect. It's a connecting word, but it connects you with who you're talking to, because you can be in rapid fire, but then you say dunque, therefore, so. But just like quindi is used often the same day, and it's a little bit weaker. It's not like dunque is like exactly like the French donc, like you have to stop. So it's like svanire e dunque l'avventura delle venture. And of course, ventura is, and that's kind of an interesting way how adding the AD or the AV in front of ventura changes it to like adventure, future, excitement, going out on some risk or some quest or adventure, avventura, like the Antonioni film L'Avventura. But ventura, of course, comes from venire, the verb to come, and so it's kind of like the what am I trying to say? It's kind of just good fortune, I guess you could say it. Buona ventura. And you also got that in Spanish. I think there are a bunch of cities in America called Ventura, but I think it's from the Spanish root, which is, of course, but from the same Latin root. It's the same word. There are fewer words than you think, but there are a lot of words that you can decipher if you know one or the other. But that one is exact, of course, Ventura. And then avventura brings it to a different level. So, yeah, something that will come, but then avventura can also mean like a little affair or casual sex or something. And ventura is more. That's so interesting. It's so interesting how these words, because if you read it too quickly, you hear. You could hear it. You could hear it. Avventura, la ventura, la ventura, la avventura, la ventura, and it's like, yeah, something that will come, right? Destiny, and so I'd see that's why I don't like this idea of calling it destiny, but it does work. It does work in English. It's just so interesting that words have carry on and through history all these ancillary meanings and contexts, and it might trigger a memory where that word was used powerfully by someone or in some cultural product or music or whatever, and and so it's kind of like deliquesces a little bit. Now I'm not making any sense. I'm just stringing some words together. But I'm going to try to read it one more time, and I think we'll end that there. But Eugenio Montale, this is going to be a long project, like all summer long project, just to get through Ossi di Seppia. Because I'm finding them interesting to do in the context of what's been going on in our crazy world. Of course, he wrote these in a very, very different time and under very, very different traumas right after World War I. And I don't need to tick off all of the crazy things going on in our world, which are different, very different, but traumatic in different ways. And I was going to say that's a beautiful image to think of the cuttlefish bones on the shore of Liguria on the sea, and then its connection with this long tradition of creating the tone, the color from them, and how that creates an image, and what he's doing with this and with the sunflower as an image. And of course, the girasole is describing the action. It's not just when you just say sunflower, when you just do a compound word like that, it doesn't have that same motion action, because that's exactly what they do, right? They track the sun when they're young to maximize, and then when they're mature plants, then they just face east so they can warm up earlier and helping with pollination and stuff like that. And I'm surprised there are many sunflower plots around the Helsinki metro area. So I guess probably in August you can go pick them if you like, and it's always fun to go through if you've ever been through a field of sunflowers that are like 3 meters high, maybe not 3 meters high, but more than two, 2.5. And so they're magical plants, and I think the Italian just captures that movement in just a simple little word. Portami il girasole che io lo trapianti nel mio terreno bruciato del Salino e mostri tutto il giorno agli azzurri specchianti del cielo l'ansietà del suo volto giallino. Tendono a chiarità le cose oscure e sguariscono i corpi in un fluire di tinte, queste in musiche. Svanire è dunque l'avventura delle venture. Portami tu la pianta che conduce dove sorgano bionde trasparenze e evapora la vita quale essenza. Portami il girasole impazzito di luce. I love that, yeah, crazed with light, which is exactly what it is, like figuratively and literally. And there's always been something, and then just thinking about the little florets. It's actually like many flowers that are designed in the Fibonacci sequence in these interlacing. What do you call them? What is the word? No, I can't think of it. But anyway, they're exemplars of sacred geometry, right? In the way they're all optimally designed in that big, I guess you could call it an eye. And so and then yeah, impazzito di luce, because you want it. It's like it's leading towards that moment of clarity and transcendence, and the sunflower is a perfect vehicle for trying to describe that grasping for just give me just speak in cliches, bring me that one moment in time. And it also makes me happy. You know, I like the fare un giro. I like that as far as, you know, what my natural activities are, what my nature is, always in giro. And then I like the impazzito. One of my friends in Piemonte, I knew we were friends finally. They did me a great service because they told a whole bunch of people just to speak Italian to me, and don't speak English with him, just speak Italian, because he's good. We need to get him better. And they really helped me. But then there was one evening after this long dinner, I think, yeah, there were some people from Laguelia there, and then there were a bunch of Koreans who spoke decent Italian, and we were all together. And then after. Yeah, that's right. After everyone else was left, he says to me, he looks at me and he says, "Siamo pazzi, siamo pazzi." It's like, we are crazy, and praised with light, impazzito di luce. I'd like to think of it that way as a good kind of crazy, because there's lots of kinds of crazy. But anyway, I'm going to end this right now, and thank you so much for going on this journey with me. One of my main goals is just to encourage more people to read poetry out loud. It will change your life in so many ways you can't even imagine, because the magic of language is something that is being lost in so many ways. AI slop and bad education and all kinds of nonsense. But it's something that we all have access to, and that if you get it in the right way, if you get it in your brain and your soul the right way, it changes your whole relationship to language, observation, meaning, brings more joy into life. Like, is that so wrong? Anyway, I'm rambling. I probably rambled a lot in this one. I don't know if it was worth listening to, but I appreciate it, and I enjoy doing these. And we'll talk again soon.